Welcome to the Instagram Stories for Thursday, December 12th. I'm your host, Daniel Hill. Today on the show, we're going to talk about a new feature that Instagram just released that allows you to share a reel to people who don't follow you. Therefore, you can test to see how it does and potentially make changes before you post it for your followers to see it. Also, Corey Walker, author of Instagram for Dummies and Instagram for Business for Dummies, stops by to talk about the Instagram for Business for Dummies 3rd edition that just released. All of that and more on today's episode. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Have you ever shared a reel on Instagram and it didn't perform very well? It's an extremely frustrating experience. How Instagram works is that it shows that reel to a small subset of your followers that it thinks will like that reel. And if they do, it shows it to more people. If more followers of yours like it, it then begins to share it with people who don't follow you. And eventually you will hit the explore page, which many more people will see and hopefully like that content. And if it keeps doing well, Instagram will show it to more and more people. But if the original group of your followers that see that piece of content don't like it, what then? It tends to just die on the vine. This is incredibly frustrating. Instagram has now announced a new way for you to post that reel so that people who don't follow you have an opportunity to see it first. This can give you valuable feedback that you can use to shape the reel, changing it, tweaking it, modifying it in some way so that by the time your followers do see it, they like it. Here's the head of Instagram, Adam Mosseri, explaining this new feature, how it works, and why you should use it.
It would be cool if you could see how a reel is going to do before you actually post it on Instagram. That's the idea behind a new feature we're launching this week around trial reels. So we've been working on this really closely with creators for almost a year now to try and figure out ways to depressurize the experience of sharing reels on Instagram. And the way this works is you're going to be able to share a reel and mark it as a trial, and then it won't show up on your profile or on your Reels tab or even for anybody who follows you. Instead, we will show it just to some people who do not follow you, and you can see how it's doing. I'd recommend you look at how many likes and sends it's getting per reach. Look at that ratio. And then you can decide after a day or two if you actually want to commit to sharing it with everybody who follows you and having it show up on your profile. Hopefully making the experience of sharing reels a little bit less pressurized and a little bit more fun. Try it out if you get a chance and let me know down below in the comments what you think. Peace.
I'm excited to report that I do have this feature. To check to see if you have it, make sure your Instagram app is updated and then go to the section where you would post a new reel. When you go to post it, a box will pop up and it says, try out content with a new audience using trial reels. Show a trial reel to non-followers to get early feedback on whether your content resonates. You'll see key insights within 24 hours after sharing, so you can understand how your trial reel is performing. Trial reels don't appear on your profile. Some followers may still see your trial reel, like when someone shares it with them. Then when you actually close out of that window and you go to post the reel, there's a little toggle to turn the trial on and off. It explains, in feed and reels, your reel will only be shown to non-followers at first and won't appear on your profile. If it performs well, you can also choose to automatically share it to everyone in trial settings. Really excited to see that I have this feature, and I'm very interested in testing some different kinds of content that I might not ordinarily do just to experiment with to see how the random population on Instagram at large likes my content. One thing I do want to call out though, Adam Mosseri mentioned that this has the goal of depressurizing Instagram. If anything, I think this actually creates more pressure because it makes me want to make different versions of the same piece of content to see what performs better with an audience that is not my own. I would never normally bombard my audience with the same similar piece of content over and over, but if they're not my audience, then I don't care. However, I still think that adds a layer of pressure because now I want to analyze that data even more. So maybe you feel the same way about it, or maybe you think it depressurizes Instagram. Either way, I highly recommend experimenting with this feature as soon as possible. Okay, we are going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to interview Corey Walker, author of Instagram for Business for Dummies, so stick around. Welcome back. Here's my interview with Corey Walker, author of Instagram for Business for Dummies. Today on the show, we have Corey Walker. Corey, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Corey, for people who might not be familiar with you, can you tell us who you are and what it is that you do?
Sure. So I'm Corey Walker. I am the co author of Instagram for Dummies and Instagram for Business for Dummies. And I'm also a social media strategy consultant and agency owner in El Dorado Hills, California.
That's a lot. I want, I'm excited that you're here because we're going to be talking about your upcoming book. If you're not familiar, Corey has written 4 Instagram for Dummies books. The 5th is coming out in December, right when this episode releases. How did you get started doing that, writing and working with the For Dummies brand?
Yeah, so my I have a friend, my co-author Eric Buteau, and he had written several books under the For Dummies brand, and they were looking to do. Initially, we did the Instagram for Business for Dummies was the first one that they wanted to do, and he knows how to write Instagram or sorry Dummies books. There's kind of a templated style and voice, but he needed an expert on Instagram. So he knew that I had already been using it for my business and for my clients. And so he reached out and asked if I would like to be a co author as the subject matter expert. So we started on the first one and we brought on Jen Herman as well. So we had a great partnership of the 3 of us. And so that one started and then that was successful. And so then they brought on Instagram for Dummies, which is less business focused and it's just for anybody that wants to use Instagram for personal reasons. And so now we're on the 3rd edition is the one that's coming out next month or by the time this airs this month. The 3rd edition of Instagram for Business for Dummies. And then we have 2 editions of Instagram for Dummies out. So it just, as Instagram changes, we have to update the books and it changes literally as we're writing. So it's constantly changing.
I'm glad you brought up all the changes that happen with the platform. And there are so many. Why should a business start using Instagram if they haven't up until this point?
Well, what I love about Instagram is that almost every audience that you could think of is on Instagram. So, for instance, Facebook has really aged up. So if you're trying to, get somebody that's in their 20s or 30s, they might not be on Facebook anymore. If you're trying to reach someone that's, 60s and up, they're not necessarily going to be on TikTok. But Instagram is kind of the great middle. So, I have 2 daughters, a 16 and a 20-year-old, and they are both on Instagram. Wouldn't touch Facebook with a 10-foot pole. And then my dad, who's in his 80s, is also on Instagram. So it really reaches a wide audience. And there's different parts of Instagram that attract different people. So, for instance, some people might only like to watch things in the feed. Other people might be really tuned into lives. So you just kind of have to really know your target audience and what they like how they like to view things and where they like to view things. And I think Instagram has it all, basically.
Yeah, I agree with that. You are working on, I know, the Instagram for Business for Dummies side of things. If someone has a business, they might really be struggling to find the time to create content, to post it. How do you recommend people think about that? I know you create a lot of content, so you're posting frequently. What's the best way to sort of handle that dichotomy between creating your business, running your business, and making that content?
Yeah, what I like to tell people is if they stand back and do some planning, maybe it's once a month in the beginning of the month, you're going to plan out your month. And when I work with small business owners, we usually develop content pillars. And that is the 3 to 5 things that you're going to talk about consistently. And so once you have these content pillars, it makes it a lot easier to come up with the content that you're going to share. If you can sit down once a month and say, okay, I'm going to talk about, these 12 things and plan out some of those posts. And it doesn't even have to be fully, created But just spend a day, not even a day, just, a couple hours planning that. And then maybe have one other content creation day where you're filming some reels, putting those together. That is what breeds consistency, because what I see a lot of people do, and trust me, I fall into this trap myself. I'm not always perfect about, sitting back and planning out, but things go much better when you do. But what I find a lot of people doing is they're busy running their business, and it's the end of the day and they're like, oh, I didn't post anything. What am I going to post? What am I going to post? What am I going to post? And then they throw some random thing out there that has nothing to do with anything. And then their social media is not consistent, and it's probably not sharing the messaging that they would have had they planned it out and had some kind of campaign or some kind of follow through. A lot of the times I just see people throwing up something random because they feel like they should be active that day. So that's how we do it, just really taking a step back and taking a day or two to plan things out, and then you can kind of set it and just check in on your messages in the morning, and it's a lot less hectic.
That's a great strategy. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Corey's going to talk about the things that business owners should avoid doing on social media. Stick around. Welcome back. We're talking with Corey Walker, author of Instagram for Business for Dummies. Here's Corey explaining what business owners should avoid doing on Instagram. What are some things that a business should avoid doing on social media?
Not planning. No, but not having any regard for who your target audience is. I see a lot of business owners that talk just about the features of whatever their product or service is. But what you really need to look at is the acronym WIFM, what's in it for me. And when I say me, I'm talking about the customer. So anytime a customer is online and they're looking at things, they're looking at it through the lens of, how does this benefit me? And so if you put yourself into those shoes and say, well, what's the ultimate goal of my product or service? That's the best way to do it. And so what not to do is not considering your target audience and not considering what is in it for them. I see a lot of that. I also see a lot of people still sharing like stock photos and just really boring stuff, where I think, okay, who's attracted to this? Who are you trying to get to like this stock photo? It's So I still see people doing that. The other thing is not integrating any kind of video in your strategy. I know a lot of people don't like doing video. They feel self-conscious or whatever it is, but video and short form content like that it's here to stay. And so, so they really need to incorporate some of that. And using some carousels is also helpful.
Those are all absolutely the correct way to think about it. I know since you just mentioned Reels, TikTok is a big part of, our modern lives. YouTube Shorts, similar, now expanding past 60 seconds. How should businesses think about Reels versus TikToks versus YouTube Shorts?
I mean, it all goes back to audience. So you can if you want to be on all of those platforms, you could make any of those outside of the platform and share them on all of them. But what I tell people is really know where your audience is. If they're on TikTok, go full on TikTok and do that. Taking a step back, seeing where you want to spend your time, because it's hard to spend your time effectively on, 5 different platforms, and then create your videos for your target audience on that platform. There are plenty of people that put the same thing on TikTok and they put it on Reels, and that's fine. Just make sure if you're doing that, if you're creating it through TikTok that you don't put the TikTok logo on Instagram, because Instagram does not like that. And they have actually said that they will downgrade your video if they see that TikTok logo on there. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think your own logo, right, would be okay if that was part of the video, but obviously the TikTok logo would not be something that Instagram would want to reward seeing.
Yes,
I think it still sneaks through every once in a while, but for
it
the most
does.
part,
It
that is
does. Yeah.
absolutely something you want to make sure that you avoid. What would you say are some of the trends that you've seen recently, and what sort of trends do you think will carry over into 2025?
Um, well, I think that we're still going to see, um, in terms of what type of content, we're still going to see lots of reels. And as I mentioned before, carousels are going to be more and more popular. I love carousels, and I love it for some of my clients that don't love being on Reels as much. And I think your audience, you talk about Instagram a lot, so they probably know what carousels are. But if they don't, carousels are those posts where you can have now up to 20 different slides or videos within there. And I like to tell people to use them to either tell a story, so you get people scrolling through till the end, or use it for 5 tips for A, B, and C. Anything that lends itself to people wanting to go through until the end. So those are two of the things. I think a big push now also is more and more authenticity. So for years, we had Instagram being this curated, pretty place where we had flat lays, and you'd go to someone's profile and it all matched and looked beautiful. And I think with the rise of video, we're seeing that go out the window. So just more and more people being authentic. And I think we'll also see more people using the tools within the platform. Instagram has been rolling out tons of new video editing things within. They also, now you can edit regular posts. So if you put a photo up there, there's now editing tools for that right in the app. And for one thing, Instagram likes it when you use all of their tools. So they automatically usually favor those videos and posts that use their tools. But I think people are also getting a little turned off by some of those posts that they're created in CapCut. You see all the fancy captioning, and you see clips going in. I think people are getting tired of that, and they automatically see it as a marketing message. I think more people are liking just hearing directly from a person and getting their point of view. If it's for a product, having a customer talk about it and talk about how it changed their life. Using some more of those micro influencers instead of hitting up, Kim Kardashian to talk about a shake that, who knows if she's actually using it. So I definitely think more authenticity is going to be a big trend throughout 2025.
Yeah, I agree. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Corey's going to talk about threads and what her strategy has been. Stick around. Welcome back. We're talking with Corey Walker, author of Instagram for Business for Dummies and Instagram for Dummies. And here she is talking about how she's been using threads. Do you see threads being part of that as well? Like, how have you been using threads, or have you been on there? I know you have, because I've seen your posts over there. Can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Sure. Yeah, I've been enjoying threads, and I use it a little bit more willy-nilly, which I kind of like having a place to do that, because Instagram, I really try to stick to my brand on Instagram, and I will share personal things, but threads, I've been sharing a lot more different things. But yeah, I think threads is a little bit more authentic. I feel more comfortable sharing, that I made potato soup last week and some of those things. And people like that. The posts that I get the most likes on are the ones that are just personal, quirky things about my life. So I do see that. Now, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which side of the coin you're on, I just saw this morning that Threads is going to start incorporating ads in there. So we
I
knew
saw that as well.
yeah, we knew it was coming. They can't just have a free thing out there because they got to pay the bills. Um, but what I've really enjoyed about Threads is that it's just pure content and I don't have to weed through a lot of ads for things. So that's going to change. I don't know when they're going to start it, but it's coming.
Yeah, I think it's January was what I saw. And I think this is a great opportunity to talk about how, just like with Twitter, we switched to using it in the browser, right? We were using it in the app. We use it in the browser. We use the browser plugin to block the ads. You block Origin, whatever else you use. And that's going to really help to eliminate that because personally, I love the ad-free experience of Threads. I don't want it to change. Obviously, I know there are costs involved and so forth, but let's try to keep this experience as pure as possible. We see enough ads throughout our daily lives. It's enough. I want to talk briefly because I know you don't just write books, but you also work with businesses.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you work with businesses, what you do to help them, and what are kind of the strategies that you use to help them?
Absolutely. So, yeah, I really love working with service-based providers. So I work with people like healthcare providers that might have a side business, or I work with authors. I work a lot with healthcare. I just kind of fell into it. And then restaurant owners to also talk about their businesses. But what I do is a little bit what I talked about before. So I will come up with a strategy for them. We'll identify who their target audience is. We'll look at what their pain points are so we can really talk about how their service is going to benefit them, going back to the what's in it for me type stuff. And then we will come up with a content calendar. We'll talk about, some ideas for some reels, some other content, and then I'll also have them work through what I like to call the Instagram funnel. And that is, so I always put my hands up like this when I talk about it, but so you have your reels up at the top. And so that's going to attract people in that aren't necessarily your followers because they'll show reels to people outside your following. And then we have them go down the funnel to your main, your other posts, carousels, regular graphics. And then we have them go over to Instagram stories where they talk a lot more about their personal life, their day to day, behind the scenes. So we up that know, like, and trust factor. And then if they have a product that they're trying to sell, I'll have them go through, or a service really, but I'll have them do some Instagram lives where they talk, openly to an audience and hopefully get that feedback and those questions from their audience and sell their service through the lives. So those are, just some of the things that I do to help those service-based providers use Instagram.
I love that. If you can, please tell us where we can follow you online for your journey. I know your book is coming up and what other things we can look forward to you creating in the near future.
Sure. So my website is themarketingspecialist.com. And then I'm on Instagram as at Corey C. Walker. So I think you'll have that in the show notes. I don't know.
Of course.
Yeah. So the link to my Instagram will be in the show notes. I'm also at that same username on Threads, obviously. I'm also on LinkedIn as Corey Walker. And let's see, the next edition of Instagram for Business for Dummies comes out December 5th. You can find it on Amazon. I also have a fun little freebie, and I will provide the link for that. And it's called Social Sprint 5 Days to More Clients. And it's a really easy self-paced 5-day email course that goes through some of the things that I just talked about. The first day, you'll identify your target audience. Next one, you'll talk more about pain points. And it goes through kind of like a mini strategy session to get more clients through social media. And that's completely free. So I will send you that link.
I will link to everything you mentioned in the show notes, including how to get the next edition of Instagram for Business for Dummies. And to say thank you for listening all this way to the end of the show, we will be giving away 5 copies of Instagram for Business for Dummies, 3rd edition. Send me a DM at Daniel Hill Media with your name and address, and I will ensure that you get a copy of the book. So please send me a DM at Daniel Hill Media. Corey, this has been so great having you on. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thanks for having me. It was great talking to you.
Okay, that's it for my interview with Corey. As always, thank you for listening. If you enjoy this content, please go on Apple Podcasts and leave a review of this show. It would really mean the world to me, and it would help other people to find the show. Be sure to come back next time for more content that I know you absolutely need to hear.
Let me tell you a couple things that you should know about me. A product manager, but do not have a bachelor's degree. But actually, that's factually a fraction of me. Another fraction's posting content irregular and irrationally. Still probably won't get a job at the Gram. They forgot, they don't know, or don't care who I am. That's why you never see me at the parties and events. My lack of followers must make me irrelevant. Don't have a course, a book to sell to make a bag of grand. Not a social media marketer, don't represent any brands. Plain to see, don't have an agency, but I got a lot of spam. Just putting in my work without the glitz and glam. Won't catch me eating fish unless it's shrimp or clam. No 6-pack, no risk that there's a gym card in my hand. Don't have a full-time job, but I got a lot of plans. Stay plotting, dropping knowledge on TikTok and Instagram.